Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in tonight and staying tuned. In the Upper Room live, coming to you from Comcast Studio 28. Channel 28 is the place to be. It's 28 in the 2800 block. So you know this is where we need to be. Going to our next segment, we have Dr. Donald Morton and Pastor D joining Shauna and I. And we're going to talk about some serious issues in our community. Many of you witnessed and heard about the meeting that took place at City Council. It was twofold, but you had the Comcast Live and Least Access piece, but then you also had an anti-violence piece that was presented so eloquently and passionately by Pastor D. And Dr. Donald was quoted in the News Journal piece following that event. And he said some profound things that I agree with. He pointed out very appropriately and constructively that this violence that has been going on, a lot of it is targeted violence, and we do not want to encourage our neighbors, friends and neighbors, to unhealthily isolate their children. But they can speak to that better.
We'll go ahead and get started. Why don't you go ahead and get started, Pastor Donald?
Well, first, thank you guys for having me on. You always welcome me with open arms.
Thanks for coming.
I didn't know Pastor D would be on here. I would not have come.
I'm trying to
I feel like it's not true.
That's why you've always been welcome.
You have adequately quoted what I said in the paper, and I was asked by the News Journal to kind of comment on what I thought about the violence. And it's important to realize that while all of it is tragic, every black body loss is tragic. Much of what is going on is not just some universal idea. It is a very targeted event. And because they are targeted events, you cannot isolate everybody and live in an unhealthy kind of fear. It is the equivalent to what happened on 9/11, that we had to go about our daily lives as if not to give attention to what the terrorists desired to do. That's what terrorism is. It is the act of making sure everybody is fearful and not going about their daily lives. And so it was important that the Black Clergy Consortium speak to the fact that yes, these are tragic events, but you can't think that you're going to walk outside and something just randomly is going to happen to you. And while we make sure that we grieve with those that have lost lives, because every individual life is important. We don't want the rest of the community to run around in a box and they feel like they've got to live their lives in a cage. And so that's incredibly important.
Pastor D?
Well, we were there at City Council to do two things, and I believe we accomplished both. But we accomplished both because of the willingness and bravery, I would say, of some of the City Council members. In my view, City Council functioned as it should on Thursday all the time. In addition, the community leadership, there were other leaders who were there, Bishop Aretha Morton and Jay Street, to name a few, but the room was full of leaders, clergy, political leadership, activist leadership, yourself, and so everybody got on, as we say, the same page. And it's important that we note how and why that happened, because believe it or not, that's why we can't do anything about what's taking place in the city of Wilmington. We were there to assert one simple fact, that we are not hopeless and helpless in Wilmington. We are able to do something about it. We do have people who possess the necessary skills, and we do have ideas. But for too long, we have played kingmaker in Wilmington. We have paid out-of-town people to do studies and more studies. We have jumped over top of people we do not like because of personality over principle. And as a result, we have the blood of our citizens on our hands. We simply came to say, enough. Let us try. It's not a Pastor Derek program. The Black Clergy Consortium is a very integral part of what we're doing. However, Pastor Donald, is effective in doing what he just did and dealing with the press and all of those things, I'm effective on the block and in the streets and dealing with the young people. Because we have no fear of one another's and are not intimidated with one another, we've helped thousands of people in our relationship. And we've simply said to government, we need, in the last 6 weeks of the summer, an anti-violence camp. The Hope Commission is not an anti-violence body, an anti-violence board. Therefore, they are unqualified to communicate messages of anti-violence to a massive number of young people in the city of Wilmington. Many of the people who were arrested in these recent murders, it's not being reported, this was not their first time at the dance. There are a number of people in Wilmington who are arrested for a murder who have already murdered 4 and 5 people. That's the unspoken proverbial white elephant in the room that nobody wants to address. And so we're simply saying, and I have to thank City Councilman Mike Brown, City Councilman Kevin Kelly, City Councilman Charles Potter, who all immediately, and especially City Councilman Trippy Congo, they immediately articulated the importance of moving without hesitation. In fact, City Councilman Kevin Kelly is working right now to try and get this camp up and running, and we have children lined up around the block already to participate. So I was very moved by Thursday. I was very touched by the mass unity, but more importantly, I was very encouraged by the actions of the city council members, with the exception of the city council president, who seemed to not want us to express ourselves fully. And we must make Norman Griffin understand, and anybody else that's in a position like that, that you are in a position of service to the people. And that forum belongs to the people. I will tell you this and close. I don't know how, I do know how Pastor Morton feels about it. When I say that the hands that picked the council Thursday are going to pick the next mayor. We will undoubtedly pick the next mayor. I'm noticing in the mayor's race, and many people are waiting for our announcement. Who are we supporting? Who are we going to endorse? And we have held off purposely because we bothered to do a scientific measure, and at last count we counted 8,000 solid votes, block of people who will move on a dime on primary day and vote for the candidate that we're supporting. We see that as the new TV series Leverage. We see that as, and we haven't asked for any money, we haven't asked for any jobs, we haven't gone to any candidates and threatened them. We've simply said, on election day, we are going to show you how important the will of the people is and how it's not to be taken for granted. So when we do make that announcement as to who we endorse and who we support, and the only reason we haven't done it with you is because of the sanctity of Dottie Neal and the spirituality of the show, and this show has always been a neutral, welcoming force, and we think it's important that upper room stay the upper room. You know what I mean?
Yes,
but we coming. It's not like we don't know who we're going to support, and not like we're not out there politically active. But those city councilmen that I named, Kevin Kelly, Mike Brown, just working hard for us to get this anti-violence camp up and running. And Tom Gordon came forward immediately and said, what can I do to give to this camp? The former city treasurer. I mean, everybody saw the common sense of it. Just before coming here, I left the home of Mr. Curry. Now consider this, Mike. Here, Mr. Curry, who was killed in Eden Park. Here's what the church ought to be doing. Here's what we should be doing as a city. His wife and small children are living in a beautiful home that man worked hard for. He was a working man and sole provider. After the funeral and after the pats on the back, after the victim's compensation to take care of the funeral, what about the mortgage of the home?
Amen.
She's a stay-at-home mom. Immediately, this family. Now, why should we care, Pastor D? It has been printed. This man was a witness in a murder case who was going forward on our behalf. So he was killed for being willing to protect all of us.
Right.
I believe the city of Wilmington, state of Delaware victims compensation boards should come together and should pay off the mortgage of that house and say to his son, your father gave his life to make my family safe. Right. And this is the least we could do to make sure that you have a roof over your head. That's the kind of work Pastor D is going to dedicate himself to doing in these coming months and days.
Well, we are getting the wrap-up signal. Any final words?
No, I just want to again thank you. I think it's incredibly important, as Pastor Derek and I, Pastor D and I have said on other broadcasts, these are not the time to count marbles. I'm not interested in...
And he doesn't give you your marbles back. You still have my marbles. I still
have your marbles.
Last time I was over your house and we shot marbles.
Give me mine back. Okay. And so Pastor D and I are the prototype, the poster children of individuals that don't always agree. We don't always agree, but we've learned to put things aside for the common good of people. And I think that much can be learned from our relationship relative to others so that we can get about the business of serving the people of the city of Wilmington. Amen. So we want to thank you again for your time.
It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Frederick Douglass.
On that note, we're going to say goodnight. Actually, we're going to ask you to stay tuned for the next half hour for the Darius Browns at Better Wilmington. And Michael and I will see you not next week, but the week after that. And we want to say thank you to all of our guests. Take care.